What if I told you that one of the most terrifying spiritual battles in history did not happen in a cathedral, not on a battlefield, and not in front of crowds, but inside a small, silent bedroom in rural France, where a thin, exhausted priest lay awake every night as the devil screamed his name in the dark? Before we begin this story, make sure you subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell, because stories like this are not meant to entertain only. They are meant to wake you up. And while you listen, leave a comment below and tell me how far this video reaches your country, your city, so I know how far these stories travel and how many people are willing to listen. This is not a legend. This is not folklore. This is the true story of Saint John Vianney and the demon he called the Grappin, the Claw. To understand why the devil came for him personally, we must go back to a time when faith itself was hunted, when believing could cost you your life, and when a quiet boy from the French countryside learned very early that loving God meant learning how to suffer. Jean-Marie Vianney was born in 1786 in Dardilly, France, during one of the most violent spiritual periods in European history. The French Revolution was approaching, and when it came, it did not only attack kings and governments, it attacked God. Churches were burned. Religious symbols were destroyed. Priests were arrested, exiled, or executed. To publicly practice Catholicism was dangerous. To be a priest was a death sentence. John grew up watching fear live inside his parents' eyes. Masses were celebrated in secret, late at night, in barns and hidden rooms. Lookouts stood outside, ready to warn if soldiers approached. Prayers were whispered, not sung. Faith was no longer something you displayed, it was something you protected. And in that silence, in that danger, John learned that God was not loud. God was faithful. As a child, John was not impressive. He was slow to learn, easily confused, and struggled especially with reading and memorization. Other boys surpassed him quickly. Teachers grew impatient. Some even mocked him. But there was one thing no one could deny: John prayed constantly. While others played, he knelt. While others talked, he listened. There was a seriousness about him that did not belong to a child. Even then, it was as if he sensed that his life would not be easy. When John finally decided he wanted to become a priest, resistance came from every direction. The church itself doubted him. He failed entrance exams. Latin, the language of theology, confused him deeply. Again and again, he was told that he was not intelligent enough, not capable enough, not suited for the priesthood. At one point, it seemed certain that his dream was over. Any other man would have quit. But John did not want the priesthood because it was respectable. He wanted it because souls were dying without guidance. He once said that if people truly understood what a priest was, they would die of love. That belief carried him forward when ability failed him. After many humiliations and many tears, he was finally ordained, not because he excelled, but because those above him recognized something dangerous in him: total surrender. When John was assigned to Ars in 1818, it felt like exile. Ars was a small, spiritually dead village. People drank heavily. Sundays were treated like any other day. The church stood empty, cold, forgotten. Some villagers laughed when they saw him. Others ignored him completely. This was not a parish that wanted holiness. This was a parish that had grown comfortable without God. John arrived quietly, no grand sermon, no dramatic declaration. He simply began to pray. And that was the moment hell noticed him. At first, nothing seemed unusual. John lived simply, sleeping little, eating almost nothing. He visited homes, catechized children, preached with a seriousness that unsettled people. Slowly, something began to change. A few villagers returned to confession. Then more. Then strangers from nearby towns began arriving. John spent hours in the confessional, listening, guiding, forgiving. Every confession pulled a soul out of darkness. Every soul rescued tightened a noose around something unseen. That was when the disturbances began. At night, John heard footsteps in his room when no one was there. Scratching sounds echoed along the walls. Objects moved slightly, just enough to make him notice. The air grew heavy, as if something invisible filled the space. John did not panic, he smiled. Calmly, he gave the presence a name: Grappin, the Claw. He understood immediately what it was. The devil does not waste time on meaningless lives. The attacks escalated quickly. One night, John's bed suddenly caught fire, not from a candle, not from negligence. Flames erupted without explanation. Witnesses later confirmed burn marks and the smell of smoke. John escaped unharmed. Instead of fleeing, he knelt beside the ruined bed and prayed. He later said the devil was only angry because souls were being taken from him. Soon the entire village heard it. Screams in the night. Not human, not animal. Voices filled with hatred and mockery, shouting insults meant only for John. Neighbors heard furniture crashing, walls shaking, doors slamming. Some were terrified. Others accused him of madness. But the disturbances were too consistent, too physical, too witnessed to be ignored. John endured all of it in silence. He did not reduce his confessional hours. He did not ask for protection. He did not complain. He once said, calmly, that the devil is afraid of prayer and that fear makes him violent. But what no one knew yet was that the devil was only beginning. Because fire and noise were not meant to destroy John's body. They were meant to prepare him for something far worse. In the nights that followed, Grappin would stop screaming and start speaking. And when that happened, the real war would begin. The fire stopped as suddenly as it had begun. The screams that once tore through the walls of the presbytery faded into something quieter, something more controlled. And that silence, more than the chaos before it, unsettled John Vianney. He had already learned that the devil never changes tactics without a reason. Noise is meant to frighten. Silence is meant to prepare. Night after night, John lay awake in his small room, listening to the weight of the darkness itself. The air felt thick, almost breathing. It was not empty. He could sense a presence nearby, close enough to feel, but not close enough to see. The scratching on the walls was gone. The footsteps had stopped. What remained was the sensation of being watched, judged, measured. And then, finally, a voice spoke. It did not shout. It did not curse. It whispered. The voice was low and deliberate, filled with patience, as if it had all the time in the world. It spoke John's name slowly, intimately, as though it had known him since childhood. It reminded him of his failures, not with cruelty, but with precision. It spoke of his poor education, the humiliations he had endured during his studies, the priests who once dismissed him as unfit. It asked questions instead of making accusations, and that made them harder to resist. Why would God choose someone so weak? Why would souls trust a man so limited? Why suffer like this when no one truly understands the cost? John listened without responding. He understood something most people never do. The devil does not invent wounds. He studies them. Every word the voice spoke carried truth, twisted just enough to poison the heart. These were not random attacks. They were surgical. The goal was no longer fear. The goal was doubt. Sleep became impossible. Each time John closed his eyes, the voice returned, gently pressing against his mind. It told him he had done enough, that his suffering was unnecessary, that ours would survive without him. And slowly, exhaustion began to wear him down. His body weakened. His face grew pale. Villagers noticed him falling asleep briefly during confession, not from laziness, but from nights without rest. Still, he refused to stop. As the psychological torment intensified, the physical attacks returned, but differently. John awoke one night unable to breathe, crushed by an invisible weight on his chest. He struggled for air as unseen hands pressed him into the bed. When the pressure finally lifted, bruises marked his body. Witnesses later confirmed seeing unexplained marks. Furniture moved violently. Doors slammed without cause. Other priests who attempted to stay near him fled in terror, unable to endure what they heard and felt. And yet, through all of it, John did something that confused even the demon attacking him. He laughed. When Grappin screamed insults, John responded with calm amusement. He called the demon late, mocked his lack of creativity, and dismissed his threats as empty noise. This was not arrogance. It was humility sharpened by faith. The devil feeds on fear. Deprived of it, he grows desperate. The voice grew angrier. It began to threaten openly. It promised suffering, abandonment, failure. It warned John that if he continued, the torment would never end. And in a moment that revealed the heart of the battle, the demon made an offer. If John would leave Ars, the attacks would stop. If he would abandon the confessional, peace would return. The temptation was not to sin, but to quit, to rest, to walk away. John answered without hesitation. He said he would stay. That single decision sealed the next phase of the war. Because the devil does not retreat when refused. He escalates. And when intimidation and exhaustion failed, Grappin prepared his most dangerous weapon, one that had destroyed saints, broken holy men, and ended vocations throughout history. He would no longer speak as an enemy. He would speak as God. The nights grew heavier in Ars. What had once been screams and fire now transformed into something far more dangerous. Silence and whispers that felt holy. John Vianney had faced flames and thrown furniture. He had been bruised, shaken, and mocked. But now, the demon Grappin learned that violence alone could not bend him. So it changed its weapon. It would no longer terrify him from the outside. It would attack from within, where most men are weakest, the heart, the mind, and the soul. One night, as John knelt in his small room in prayer, he heard a voice. It was gentle, tender, familiar. It spoke softly, quoting scripture, invoking phrases John had memorized as a boy. It promised comfort. It promised rest. It praised his sacrifice and told him he had done enough. "You may leave now," the voice whispered. "You may rest, you have suffered enough. Let someone else take this burden." It sounded holy. It sounded divine. And for a moment, John felt a pang of doubt, a dangerous human doubt. The temptation was not sin, it was cessation. It was the offer to quit, to stop loving, to stop suffering for souls that would never repay him. And for a man who had been awake nights on end, bruised, exhausted, and weak, it was almost irresistible. He felt the pull to obey, to leave Ars, to finally rest from the torment. But John had learned the first rule of spiritual warfare. God does not call his servants away from love. God does not offer comfort in the place of obedience. John spoke aloud, questioning the voice. "Does this ask me to love less?" The room froze. The warmth in the air turned to cold. The gentle voice evaporated, replaced by screaming, shouting, and rage. Grappin revealed itself fully, furious that its deception had failed. "You stubborn fool, you will die here. You will suffer until the end," it shouted. Furniture slammed. Doors shook. Walls rattled violently, and for the first time in weeks the village of Ars could hear the raw fury of hell unleashed. Yet John remained on the floor, kneeling, calm. His body was frail, but his mind and spirit were fortified. He did not scream. He did not fight. He prayed. He called the names of Jesus and Mary aloud. Every prayer, every utterance of holiness was a weapon. The demon shrieked, trying to twist the air itself into pain. But prayer cuts deeper than claws, deeper than fire, deeper than despair. Grappin screamed, raged, tried to manipulate, tried to coerce, and yet it was powerless. Witnesses in the village could not deny it. Other priests slept in nearby rooms but fled in terror when they heard the sounds. Doors slammed violently on their own. Unseen forces moved objects across the floor. But John never faltered. Confession lines grew longer. Pilgrims traveled hours, days, just to kneel before him. They waited, sometimes in the rain, sometimes starving, because they had seen that a man who could endure the unendurable could save them from themselves. In that moment, John's endurance became a weapon against hell itself. He was not strong, not by human standards. He was sick, malnourished, and exhausted. But he was wholly available to God. Every bruise, every sleepless night, every scream he endured strengthened him. The demon could not touch what had surrendered fully. Grappin shrieked its fury, but found nothing to exploit. By the end of that night, ours had transformed. Families returned to prayer, taverns closed. Children prayed in homes again. And in the stillness of the presbytery, John realized a terrible truth. Holiness is not gentle. Holiness is war. Every soul he saved was a wound inflicted on hell. Every confession was a blow that Grappin could neither recover from nor forgive. And yet, John knew the devil was not finished. The attacks had reached a new stage. Grappin was cornered, but cornered demons are the most dangerous. The final phase would come, not with violence, not with fire, not with words, but with something far more subtle. The slow, patient attempts to destroy hope itself. John's body ached, his spirit was weary. And yet, he smiled, because he understood something the demon never could. Defeat is not announced in shouts. Defeat is revealed in silence. And one day soon, silence would be the weapon that ends the war. The final nights of John Vianney's life were unlike any that had come before. There was no fire, no screams, no visible chaos. Instead, the air itself carried a weight, a stillness, as if the darkness itself was waiting, gathering its last strength. Grappin had tried every weapon it knew: fire, noise, whispers, deception, exhaustion, doubt, and yet, the priest remained. Now the demon faced something it had never truly understood: acceptance. John no longer resisted because he was strong. He no longer fought because he had something to prove. He endured because he had surrendered completely to God. The presence of Grappin became noticeable not as a force, but as a shadow that lingered at the edge of the room. Sometimes it was close enough that John could feel its cold breath, and yet he felt no fear. When the demon tried to insult him, John did not respond. When it attempted to rattle objects or manipulate the air, he continued his prayers calmly, almost gently. The demon had lost its advantage. The very tool it relied on, fear, was gone. And in its place was unwavering faith and mercy. Ours by now was transformed. The villagers had returned to God. Confession lines stretched for hours, sometimes days. Pilgrims came from faraway towns to kneel before the priest who had endured the impossible. John spent up to 18 hours a day in the confessional. His body was frail, weakened by decades of fasting, sleepless nights, and relentless torment. Yet his spirit burned brighter than ever. Each confession, each absolution, each soul restored was a strike against hell that Grappin could not recover from. One night, witnesses reported hearing the demon speak, not with rage, not with threats, but with despair. "If it were not for you, I would have claimed many more souls," it cried, its voice trembling with fury and frustration. John, ever calm, replied softly, "Then leave." Silence followed. The demon had nothing left to offer. Its power had been undone not by strength, but by relentless prayer, sacrifice, and love that refused to stop. In the final weeks of his life, Grappin appeared one last time. It did not scream, it did not attack. It lingered, heavy and oppressive, hoping, perhaps, that time or weakness would make John falter. But John did not falter. He looked upon the presence and without anger or fear said, "I will pray for you." And with those words, the demon's hold finally ended. Mercy defeated it where all other weapons had failed. John's health failed rapidly. Years of torment, nights of endless prayer, and a lifetime of fasting left his body frail and broken. Yet his soul remained luminous, serene, and unshakable. On August 4, 1859, St. John Vianney passed quietly, without disturbance, in the presence of God. The battles had ended. Hell had been defeated. Ours remained a village transformed, a testament to the power of faith and the victory of unwavering love over the darkest of forces. The story of St. John Vianney teaches something profound and terrifying. The devil does not fear power, intelligence, or fame. He fears what he cannot corrupt, what he cannot intimidate, and what he cannot destroy. He fears prayer. He fears sacrifice. He fears love that refuses to yield. And in the small village of ours, one frail priest showed the world that endurance, holiness, and total surrender to God are weapons no evil can withstand. If this story reached you, it reached you for a reason. Subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell, because more stories of faith, darkness, and courage are coming. Comment below your city and country so I know how far this story has traveled. Remember the words of St. John Vianney himself. The devil is afraid of us when we pray, and in his life, in his trials, and in his unwavering devotion, that truth was proven to the world forever. This is the end of the story. But the battle, though unseen, never stops.